What's up, guys? Sub-Zeric here. Not for another VOD review. Today is going to be a Yap style video. I'm going to be talking to you guys about, call it controversy, call it whatever you want, going on in the TFT I almost called it the controversy, the community right now. I will have a VOD to just throw on while I yap, but I do want to show off some tweets to start off with because I think there's a story that can be told here that I think is important to just kind of frame everything. If you are not locked into all the kind of, TFT pro players and high elo players talking about this kind of stuff. So this is a tweet from pre-patch, actually, from Wei Iverson. Really disappointed at the lack of hero augment nerfs. Kennen, Malphite, Shen, Garen all average like a 3.8, no nerfs. Time to play another hero augment cup, I guess. So frustrating as a competitor. And Tim, the Truxie here, who does a lot of work on TFT. I see this guy all the time, and you're going to see a tweet from him in a sec. Agree the protag, with protag, a lot of these get over-accelerated. The augment has a lot of problems to solve, or if it needs to exist. Don't believe the silver augment version of these are out of line. I think a pretty reasonable response. I've seen silver augment versions do well, the Zac one, but the Zac one did get nerfed this patch. So, I thought maybe I would talk about this and just kind of like patching with TFT in general. But a huge kind of twist has been added to this. So this is also Dewa quote tweeting this, kind of saying similar stuff, talking about how there's kind of issues with power-ups, the fact that Jinx didn't get nerfed at all. So, people sort of, saying their frustration with the patch, but saying, here are specific things that I have an issue with. I'd like to see the game be in a better state. I think very respectful, reasonable critiques that I think a lot of, Truxie there literally just saying, I agree with you. And I think that's a great way to communicate with the devs. Now, I don't want to give too much attention to this next tweet because I don't want to blow it up into an entire thing, but I saw this tweet from 159 CM. This was the 25th, so it was today, earlier. And I don't want to give it a lot of attention, but it already has a lot of attention. 90,000 views, 800 likes. Like, for the TFT Twitter, this is pretty big. A lot of people have talked about it. And it is a Google Doc that is named TFT. And the entire Google Doc, maybe because I'm in full screen. Like, no, okay, there it was, pops up, is just complaining about stuff. This set. Over 9,000, sometimes it gives you really good stuff, sometimes it doesn't. You need specific fruits on certain units. GP was broken early in the set. Frost Touch had to be removed. Killer Instinct range, Radiant items, Mortdog and PBE talking about, the augments, the Destiny augments. It's 8 pages long. And I don't want to show really any more of it because I don't think this is productive whatsoever. I think this is honestly the worst way that you can communicate your frustrations. And look, if you have frustrations, if you need to vent these, I think it's totally reasonable to vent them. And I personally wouldn't put them in a Google Doc like this. I think this is a little schizo. But if this makes you feel better, and if you share this with your friends and complain, I think that's fine. I think when you take the next step of posting this, clearly for other people to see, for other people to lash their frustrations onto your frustrations, I do think you have to think about how this is actually being perceived by other people and what the purpose of this communication is. Because if you're venting for just venting's sake, then I don't think it really makes a difference if you put this in a Google Doc and no one sees it, or if you post this. But if you're posting this, you're expecting other people to see this. And you can see, you scroll down here, and you see literally a Nico here talking about this. A literal Riot dev sees this, and obviously, hopefully he didn't read through the entire doc, but, read some of the doc. And obviously, if you are someone who works on TFT and you see this, it just puts a bad feeling, you just feel something negative in your core, I think. There's just like a sinking feeling in your core when somebody goes to such lengths to trash something that you've worked on. And I'm not saying the TFT is a perfectly balanced game. I am not saying that the devs do a perfect job. Absolutely not. And I'll talk a little bit more about kind of my critique on how patching works in TFT in general. But I do think this is the worst way to communicate this kind of stuff. And I think as a community, this is just the lowest level of feedback. And I don't know. I was kind of upset reading through this. And it's not to say that 149 CM doesn't have a point. A lot of the stuff he brought up is stuff that is broken. I also think I personally just have a lower threshold for kind of complaining about stuff in TFT He has Socialite in here as an issue. Socialite was broken. I mean, this was a power-up where every single comp that could play it, you played it. To me, is that worth saying Riot's doing a very bad job because this power-up is broken? I think it's fine that some broken power-ups exist and then they nerf them, remove them from the game. I think that's totally fine. Because the expectation for something like this to not exist would be that there was never a broken power-up that warps the game. I think to expect that is an insane expectation. It's just impossible that there is never going to be Frost Touch. For a while, nobody plays it. All of a sudden, people realize, oh, you can play Frost Touch. 2 Frost Touch units in with 2F, it's broken. Like that took a long time for people to find. A lot of these things, Best Defense Poppy, I mean, it got buffed a bit. But still, this is a power-up that also people are, the power-up system in general is not one which people are going to see its full potential immediately. People are going to find broken stuff. And I think if you're playing TFT, you have to live with broken stuff existing in the game. And the crazy thing is devs are insanely responsive. They will do B-patch. They literally did a D-patch a few patches ago to, people found, you can play a Kali with these items and it's super, super broken. Like, they're insanely responsive. And so to act like the devs are doing a horrible job because stuff gets put onto live that is broken, I think that's just insanity. Okay, that's enough on this. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, this is the one I want to look at first from the Truxie here. So here, let me move my tweets around. I want to, this Mean Mr. Kian one here, actually. Okay, we're back. Okay, tweet from Truxie. A lot of people were assuming that there was going to be B-patch this patch. If you haven't been locked in on the meta recently, Ashe is not a unit. She averages, I mean, here, I can actually, it's fun because, for historical sake, let's look at it. She averages a 5.05. I have never seen a 4-cost average this poorly. I mean, we may never see another 4-cost average this poorly again because it's actually a quite interesting confluence of the fact that the unit is absolute trash now, and she is a Crystal Gambit unit, so obviously her stats are going to be a little bit worse. She doesn't truly average a 5, but I mean, she averages really, really poorly. So, I mean, this is insane. A lot of people are thinking, okay, maybe they'll, buff up Ashe a bit, maybe revert the changes to Ashe. There's also some issues with Crystal Gambit, I think, where you can just play Crystal Gambit stage 4 and get insane value out of it. Broken talks about it here. Easy to fix this patch. Smaller for Jinx, buff Ashe. The patch is 10 times better. And so this is surprising to me, but ties into something else that I want to talk about, which we're going to piece it all together after we show all the tweets here. Dish Soap, the patch is so bad they can't B-patch it, which, I mean, is kind of funny. Once again, I think flaving like this is... I mean, I think this is a lot more normal than writing an 8-page cool doc where you can't even write incomplete sentences because you're that upset. Now, Mean Mr. Kian actually had a great tweet as well that I want to talk through on this. If you don't like TFT this set, just quit, walk away, come back in 2 months, or don't. It's fine for the balance/bugs to be unfun. But if you don't like it because you think bad balance or bugs or prevent you from climbing, you're wrong. You just suck. Which is, I mean, it's a hilarious tweet, but I think something that a lot of people need to hear. People who are like, I'm in Diamond right now, and like, the reason why I'm not Masters yet, the reason why I'm hard stuck is that, all these bugs with stuff, like, I can't climb. Like, come on, man. Come on. Be reasonable here. So I think this is a great tweet. And then two more tweets, and then we will talk a little bit. This is a tweet from Taro, actually. This was talking about the B-patch and stuff like this. With the current and this is auto-translated from Japanese, so, it's probably not exactly what he said, but it's the gist of it. With the current adjustment capabilities, TFT gets patched way too frequently, so even if it turns out you're interesting meta, it ends in a flash, which is why I think making a 4-week patch schedule with maybe just one patch in the middle or none at all would be fine. If adjustments get changed every single week, it's tough on beginners. Even from a pro perspective, getting a patch drop 3 days before the main event leaves everyone confused. If newer players come in, it'll just wither away. So yeah, this is the idea. And then also, I want you to hire somebody who can do basic arithmetic. Ashe adjustment was kind of crazy. I think this is reasonable. Once again, I think harsh but fair. Harsh but fair. This is totally reasonable to say it's insane that Ashe averages above a 5. And then Dasik kind of talked about what he thinks is strong versus weak. Go check this out just for a good meta read. But he also says, I think we should reconsider our approach to patching TFT. I'd like to see an experiment with TFT's patch less frequently. Big patch, filler patch, big patch, i.e. major change every 4 weeks instead of 2. So that is all of my exhibits here. I have a T-Lides VOD, a nice little T-Lides VOD for us to watch here while I yap. We're already almost 10 minutes into the video, so I don't know how long I'm going to yap for, but I want to yap. A lot of feelings here. I said my feelings about, unconstructive criticism, and I do think that just stuff isn't helpful whatsoever. But the one thing I do really want to focus on is the patch schedule of TFT, the B patch kind of flow, and just balance and TFT in general. This is something that's actually been on my mind for a while, because I have a big frustration. My biggest frustration I have a very big frustration with TFT. I was going to say, this video, if none of this stuff had happened, I thought about making a video just called My Biggest Frustration with TFT right now. And maybe I'll still name it that video because it's good clickbait, I guess. But I feel like I can't, just leave that be because of all this other stuff, all these other people saying crazy stuff. But my biggest frustration with TFT right now is the frequency with which it's patched. I grinded a lot for the Paris snapshot, and I felt really confident on that patch. I felt really good, to the point where I was fine queuing up when I was kind of like close to the cutoff, because I was like, it's really tough for me to actually bot 4 on this patch, because I feel like my meta read is just fantastic. I understand how to play the lines very well. Like I was really locked in on that patch. It felt great. And then the next patch came. I felt pretty confident playing around Karma on that patch, playing around Yuumi, playing around Ashe sometimes. And subsequent patches, the patch right after that, nerfed Karma so she didn't exist anymore as a comp. The patch after that, nerfed Yuumi so she didn't exist anymore as a comp. And now this patch, nerfed Ashe so she doesn't exist anymore as a comp. It's really tough as somebody who has a full-time job. I like to make TFT videos as well. I like to do coaching as well. So I cannot, grind 50 to 100 games every single patch. It's really tough, actually, to adjust to that level of change, and especially to that degree of change, right? I would be fine if there was a patch every week. It was a very, very small patch. But because we're getting patches every 2 weeks, and these patches can sometimes drastically shift the meta, it's very hard for someone like me to catch up. And I am someone who is very ingrained in TFT. Yes, I have a full-time job, but for someone who has a full-time job, I am very invested. I'm constantly looking at stats, watching streams, reviewing streams, doing VOD reviews, doing videos, all this kind of stuff, talking to high-elo players and stuff like that, and also Kai Watanabe. And so it's if someone like me can't keep up, what hope does the casual player have? And my hope is that the casual player doesn't feel these changes too much, and that it's okay for them where, maybe there is these big shifts, but they don't even notice because they're playing, norms, or, they're playing in Diamond Elo, and it doesn't really matter. I don't really believe that that's true. I do think it's much more likely. I had someone, I think in my stream or maybe in someone else's stream, say, I'm teaching my friend how to play the game. I have this friend, she's really new to the game. And I said, learn this Yuumi comp. It's great. And she got really good at the Yuumi comp, and she learned it, and it was fantastic. And it was very easy for her, and she knew every game she could play the Yuumi comp. And then this patch comes and makes this Yuumi comp absolutely unplayable. What is that casual player supposed to do? They have to completely relearn their game plan. And if this is not somebody who, is a hard grinder of TFT, if this is someone who plays a few games of TFT a week, I mean, that might discourage them completely from playing TFT. This is what Taro was talking about in that tweet. If you're a new player and you like a comp and you feel stuff is normal, and then a patch comes out and all of a sudden that comp is unplayable, that's really, really bad. It might cause you to actually quit the game. So I do think one thing that really needs to be addressed in TFT is this balanced thrashing. It's insane that a comp like Ashe can be totally playable and then can be a 5.0 in the next day. So I do think the TFT team does need to just look at how they evaluate these changes. And if something like that happens, I do think they need to B-patch revert it. This patch, I'm quite shocked they didn't B-patch revert, because I think if they B-patch revert the Ashe change, B-patch, nerf Jinx a little bit, or reverse the RE changes, change Crystal's Gambit a little bit, maybe even don't touch Crystal Gambit, whatever. I think this would be a fantastic patch. It would be a perfect patch. I think this patch is very close to good. And honestly, the other thing that's part of this flow, which is really difficult for me, is also the piece where we have these B-patches so frequently. And what will happen is a B patch will happen and a tournament will be in 3 days. This happens a lot for people who play in the tier 2 circuit, which, I'm not tier 1. Sorry, I'm not an absolute beast, and also I have a job. But, there's some people in tier 1 who have a job, so it's not a complete that's not a great excuse, but it's an okay excuse. But I'm playing in tier 2, which means oftentimes, we'll have a patch and then Riot will say, we really need to B-patch so that tier 1 players don't have to play on this. So we're going to B-patch on a Wednesday and the cup is on a Friday, or a Tuesday and the cup is on a Friday, or the trials is on a Friday. That's really tough because all of a sudden, especially when it's a big B patch, I have to completely relearn the game again. And once again, if I'm a working guy and the B patch is on a Tuesday, I have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to learn. And so I have a few hours after work, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's not like I'm going to take off work to, prep the B patch. And so it just becomes very, very, very difficult to have a good approach to the game. And, I really felt that when I played in the last trials is I had, maybe 10 games on the patch or something. I felt really, really uncomfortable in those games. And I know had that been played on, the previous patch, not to say that I would have, won trials, won cup, rank 1, win worlds or something if they just stayed on that patch forever. But I know I would have been a lot more comfortable and I definitely would have played better. I'm not saying that I, played well and that the game sucks. I'm literally know for a fact that I misplayed because of the fact that, I had no practice on the patch, and it's hard to have practice on the patch when things are patched so frequently. So that's the other piece of it. I think one, we need to adjust. We need to really, really, really take a look at balanced thrashing. It's crazy to me, by the way, the patch earlier on in the set where Akali and Volibear were dominating. On that patch, you could play Akali, as far as 4-cost line. You could play Akali, you could play Volibear, you could play Yuumi. You could play Karma. It was a little bit weaker. That was 4 very solid 4-cost lines that were playable. I don't think Ashe was... I think Ashe probably would have cropped up eventually because I don't think people had really discovered the Colossal Udyr tech at that point. So Ashe, I think, was cropping up a little bit at that point. So you had this situation. Soul Fighters was like, niche... I think Soul Fighters was pretty bad back then, maybe niche playable. So you had that patch where I actually think that patch... what was that, like a month ago, maybe longer, was actually really, really good. We were actually really close. And yes, Akali was obnoxious to play around. What they could have done is, done a small nerf to Akali, small nerf to Volibear, and I actually think, maybe small buff to Sorks, and we would have been in a great spot. That is my main qualm with Riot and their, patch schedule. I don't understand why we can't do that. Instead, they completely gutted Akali, made it so Akali carry basically doesn't exist the rest of the set. Volibear carry is slowly coming back. He's finally kind of back, but as a main carry in for Luchador really doesn't work. I think their justification behind these changes is that Akali's not fun to play against. For Lucha is not fun to play against. And I get that, but I really don't... I think it's less fun for a unit to be completely taken out of the game, and you just cannot play Akali anymore as a carry. She has to be a trait bot for the rest of the set. I think that's worse, personally, but that's personally for me. So I do think that step one is, talked about it, but like we've had a lot of examples of balanced thrashing. I mean, the last B patch, we had, a patch where there was this humongous B patch that completely shifted the meta. Like, it's just too much. It's just too much, in my opinion, for us to have a B patch that completely... I mean, people said this is a whole new patch. We literally got a whole new patch as a B patch. And to me, having 2 weeks on a patch is pretty short already. It's enough time for me to get my bearings. If all of a sudden I'm only getting, at best, like 10 days on a patch, it's so difficult. And so I do think the second piece of it that I think would be really good is a slower patch cadence, big patches every 4 weeks. And Riot just says, we will do a big patch every 4 weeks. And then the 2 weeks between that is going to be small tweaks. And in between, we'll have even smaller, teeny tiny B patches. I think that would be fantastic for TFT. Now, it is funny. I do think the current patch schedule is really good for me as a content creator, because if Riot puts something broken out, I can just, make a video about it. And everybody wants to see the new broken tech and stuff like that. So it's actually kind of good. Like, what I'm saying here is not in my interests as a content creator. My interest as a content creator is to, have broken stuff exist and have, us, be going wildly back and forth and having, new stuff exist and new broken stuff exist. That is when my videos do the best. But as a TFT player, as just a guy who plays TFT and has fun playing TFT, I'm just kind of, fed up with this situation where I have to relearn the game every few days. And if I'm not, playing the game full time, it feels like it's impossible for me to, catch up to the other people who are, because they are able to, do this stuff and play with this frequency and, find the new tech and then, have a, Dish Soap can play 8 hours when a new patch comes out and come out of that with a patch download. That might take me a couple of days. And if patch comes out on Wednesday and I play a couple of days, finally get my read down, and there's a B patch on Friday, then my read has to go out the window and then I have to do it all over again. So I think it's a fantastic suggestion from Taro and from Dasik to have a slower patch cadence, big patches every 4 weeks, and then smaller patches in between. And I think that would move us to better balance with TFT. The other thing that I kind of, when I was thinking about this, I remember in set was 12 or 13 maybe. Old sets are out of my mind immediately when they happen. But Mortog kind of talked about the game's really balanced right now, and people are getting kind of bored. And what do you do in that situation? And it's kind of crazy to me that we have ended up in this spot where we're kind of, back in the reverse situation where balance is, there's so much balance thrashing. We're shifting back and forth so much that, it seems quaint that we had that issue in previous sets where balance was so good that people started getting bored and said nothing's changing this patch. Like, why am I gonna play the game if it's the exact same patch every single amount of time? So I do acknowledge that maybe this is an issue. Maybe like, especially like lower like casual players don't like when patches remain the same. And I'd love to hear from somebody. I know Mortog has talked about kind of things like this before, and he had a great that was on his AMA that he did, where he did that like really long, like multi-hour, just on his stream, ask him a ton of questions type thing. And so during that, that's when he brought this up, and he had, I'm trying to remember his answer to that, but I mean, he really, as I recall it, basically was just like, yeah, we're gonna have to figure this out, because it's kind of, it's interesting to think about, like, okay, what if the game is too balanced? Like, how do we approach that? And I mean, the good news is they don't have to worry about that problem this set, but I would like to get back to that being, a problem with them having to deal with, and maybe something like that'll happen. But yeah, I mean, it's just the amount of changes. I mean, artifact, complete reworks of artifacts. I mean, items being completely reworked. It just feels like for me, it feels like you can never get your footing in TFT. And I think even if we had these big changes, but once again, instead of it being every, because a set's 4 months long. If you did it 4 big patches during a set and then a bunch of minor patches, you could still do these big changes, right? Where you rework, Quicksilver and stuff like that, and, change these items at a fundamental level. You could still do that, but you would be doing that on a cadence that I think is a lot more digestible for a casual player. If every month you have these big changes, then you also have that to look forward to. You say, okay, you know what? Oh, okay, like the meta's kind of still right now, but you know what? I can just chill, and at the end of the month, boom, we're gonna get some big changes. Like, it kind of gives you the benefit of having, mid sets, but not as big, but it can maybe bring people back into the game when they say, oh, like new items, or this comp got like buffed really hard, stuff like that. I think that would be great. What it feels like right now is it almost feels like there's a mid set, like a mini mid set, every 10 days or something like that, which is, it's just impossible. It's impossible to keep up with. That's really my piece on it. I'm curious, really, what you guys think about all of this. I'm sure there's some people who are unhappy with the balance of the game, and maybe there are people who sympathize with 149 CM, like that kind of take. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who sympathize with the ideas, and yeah, stuff is broken. I mean, it's TFT. That's something else I kind of want to do a video on in the future. But definitely, I don't have time for it today. But I do think TFT players are so afraid of things being broken, and there's kind of good reason for that. TFT is a draft-based game, and so if there's something that really skews the game, it can just kind of destroy lobbies. But I also think people are so afraid of any perceived imbalance that it ends up leading to people complaining in situations that I personally find unreasonable. But I mean, once again, that's a video for another day. If you guys are interested in hearing my thoughts about it, let me know. Let me know you guys' thoughts on all of this kind of stuff. How how you think people should be communicating with the developers on this possible idea of having a slower patch cadence and things like that. And all of it, your thoughts on, the set so far. We are a little bit past halfway through because we have the new battle pass. So, I mean, if you hate this set, that's a great emote. If you hate this set, we'll be in a new set. Not too long. You can always take a couple month break, and then boom, we'll be in set 16, which will be the best set of all time. So thank you guys for watching. As always, really curious to hear you guys' takes on this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.